Choosing the right colors for an abstract composition is to me the soul of painting. After 25 years in front of many canvases, it's still like the heartbeat of the painting process. It's a symbolic language that somehow speaks to our feelings. For instance, if I look at French Impressionist Paul Cézanne's painting, I feel that his colors sing to me in a vibrant, pleasant interaction, giving me more than I actually see. And that's the power of colors. Hello everybody, I am Henrik Score. Welcome to my channel. Let's get started. Most people find that to look at the finished painting is the interesting thing. They don't really care about the process leading up to the finished painting. However, I hope you do, because that's exactly what I will talk about in today's video. Color selection and mixing, a little basic color theory, and the techniques leading up to creating harmonious and dynamic compositions. Whether you're an experienced artist or just starting up, I hope that this video will inspire you to mix and to unlock the potential of colors in your own work. Initially, my process often goes like this. I have an idea for a painting, I start sketching a bit to pull the idea out of my head. Then I choose a color to be the dominant color of the painting and what kind of composition I would like to use for this painting. Many of the decisions I made at the very start will not survive throughout the process of painting. Their purpose is to act as stepping stones, as initiators of the entire process. They will get used up and consumed by the process. Skillshare is the sponsor of today's video. Years ago, when I started painting, I was using oil and I knew nothing about acrylic paint. Then I was lucky that my son gave me an annual subscription to Skillshare. That led me to a new way of painting and a lot of other things. Skillshare is by far the largest online learning community for creative people. Depending on the complexity of the subject, you can literally go from absolute zero to pro in a matter of hours. For example, I wanted to write a book, but I knew nothing about writing and layout. Even though I had very talented people around me for help, I wanted to be responsible for everything myself. I highly appreciated that I could go through a structured process using Skillshare's learning paths, which are curated sequential class collections to master a specific skill. Over the years, I have picked from the thousands of creative classes in all kinds of categories of interest to me. If you use the link in my description below, the first 500 people will get a free month trial of Skillshare Premium. It's a pretty good offer, so click the link and try it out for yourself. After some sketching, emptying my brain out on papers, I sometimes write notes. Also, I surf the internet to find images of my idea. Google and Pinterest absolutely are my friends in this part of the process. Also, I play my piano or take a walk to find the mood of my painting. Then I decide on the format, pick a canvas and start to paint. I might not feel completely ready. I start anyway, and I know I will get there when I start. To start painting is like telling everybody at the office up here that for the next couple of hours, I don't want to be bothered with who I need to call, what I need to remember, or maybe now is a very good time to clean the studio. Leave me alone. I'm working and I'm trying to get into the zone. In the 18th century, the British scientist Isaac Newton got the brilliant idea of arranging the colors in a circle, and the color wheel was born. After that, many other suggestions have come up to optimize this layout. I use this one. Originally, it is a layout of the Swiss artist Johannes Itten. It is fine and it is free and it has all the information you need. I use the principle behind the color wheel all the time. For this painting, I have used the working title Wave symphony. In Danish, the Danish word is bølgesymphony. It is a dynamic, rhythmical movement of waves, and in my opinion, it's a little bit similar to music. I have focused on the composition principle called dynamic symmetry, and I will get back to that in a moment. In general, you can say a composition is a way to promote a certain way to create, understand, and read a painting. It can be a little bit confusing because there are so many. At least I know that I was quite confused. Of course, I studied the rules of composition and I compared the rules to paintings. I saw all the time that the composition rules didn't fit the paintings they were supposed to support. I decided that these rules of compositions and the principles behind were only created to make things easier for me and other painters to paint our paintings. And that was a wise decision. Their only purpose is to help and make things easier. For example, if I paint and find that something is working fine for me in the painting, the rules or no rules, I use it right away. And if the rules of composition is not helping me, I don't use them. At the end of the day, it's my painting, and up till now, I haven't yet been into trouble with the painting police, and I know that you wouldn't either. My own conclusion about these rules of composition is that even though you don't actually need them to paint a painting, they will make things much, much easier for you. And that's why, for hundreds of years, all over the world, artists have been using them again and again. Therefore, study the rules, get familiar with them, and use them whenever it's of benefit to you. Don't feel obligated to follow rules that some guys made up long ago. The only obligation you have, if any, is to make the best painting you can. And that's it. As I said before, I have chosen the composition dynamic symmetry for my painting. The principle contains many different directions of lines. I find that this principle very well suits my idea about a chaotic sea, with waves throwing themselves here and there in some kind of chaotic balance. Maybe chaotic, but still a balance. The dominant colors, in addition to the dark, almost black, and the light, almost white color, are blue, green, and yellow. These three colors are situated close to each other on the color wheel and will appear harmonious together. And then I will pick the accent colors from the other side of the wheels around orange and red to add some dynamic action and wildness to my sea. Now I will take a minute to explain the principle behind the composition dynamic symmetry. First, we draw the diagonals and then perpendicular lines from the corners that cross the diagonals and then go to the edge. Now we have all the lines and points that can be then connected into this pattern. The places where the line cross each other are called eyes, and the eyes are important places on the canvas. Don't use all the eyes and all the lines, but pick a few to dominate the composition, and then let the other lines lie in the background and support your painting. To sum up, I use one color to create the background for my painting. Then I choose the dominant color. In this case, I chose indigo blue. I also use indigo to mix other colors. In my view, it will contribute to a harmonic conception of the painting. Finally, I choose one or a few colors from the other side of the color wheel. I'm looking for action here, so I choose complementary colors to stand out and to sort of fight the dominant color or make some action and hopefully give the wave some movement in this painting. The indigo color has a red bias, and that, if you mix it with magenta, will make some excellent violet nuances. However, if you mix it with yellow and expect to get green, the red bias in the blue color will tone down the green and give a muddy result. the colors in a composition will appear as a whole. Alone, a color looks one way, and together with other colors, it suddenly looks different. In my paintings, I work with impression, feelings, and moods. The important thing is not the color itself, but the feelings and moods linked to the different color combinations. I am an abstract painter, and the colors I use in my paintings are only found inside my own head. But that's not the same as that the colors of nature are indifferent. The colors of nature are the bearers of meaning, and you still need to be able to exactly mix the nuance of the nature color in order to get the moods in your painting that you are after. The painting is using a form of communication that lies in a deeper layer of consciousness. This means that a painting, as well as music, can express other things that we are able to do in the spoken language. When you look through the history of art, many of the artists have been working with moods related to something not so nice, like horror, fear, uncertainty, anxiety, and stuff like that. However, in my paintings, I often work with moods related to harmony, joy, excitement, hope, something I find interesting and pleasant. But of course, you can do whatever you feel like. And this is the complete setup I plan to use for this painting. I only use these 7 colors that I mix in various shades. First, I mixed the dominant color, which is the indigo blue mixed with titanium white. And in my opinion, these 2 colors work very well together. I mix 4 or sometimes 5 shades of this blue, and these mixes will cover the entire spectrum from the very dark to the very light blue. When I'm satisfied with the mixes, I take the colors or nuances over in my glass balls and use them from there. Next in line is the background color, and I use a mix of Payne's gray and titanium white. I like titanium white and use it a lot. It is completely opaque, and when you mix other colors with titanium white, they will themselves become opaque. The next mix will be yellow. I use yellow ochre and mix it with a tiny amount of blue. Even though that the blue and the yellow are not complementary colors, you can use the blue to knock it down a bit. If I put in more, it will become green, and I don't want that. So now I have 2 shades of the yellow I want to use. When I'm painting, I will adjust these colors a bit. Then I mix my favorite muted green, and I do that with yellow ochre and Payne's gray. It will result in a very muddy green, and I like that a lot, especially for nature nuances. Of course, again, I use titanium white in the mix. Also, in this case, I need 3 nuances. Then I use the primary magenta and the Payne's gray to give me some very nice violet nuances. They are not the bright violet, but knocked down a bit. And when I mix it with titanium white, it will get opaque, and it will work well for the shadows of my waves. Also, I need green, a more distinct green or a more bright green, and I use the Hansa yellow for that. And now we go to the painting. As always, I start up by moisturizing the canvas, and then I cover the canvas with the background color, which is Payne's gray and white. And then I try to hold on to the composition, in this case, dynamic symmetry. I do this in a very sketchy way, very loose and very fast. And that's the benefit of moisturizing the canvas. And then I have this rubber spatula, which I use to remove some of the colors. I formed this hanger, and I use it to carry the dryer that I set right under the canvas in order to dry it out fast. This part of the process is very interesting. you excavate the composition and assign certain areas to do special things. For instance, I use the titanium white to form the top of the waves. Even though most of the painting at this stage is done with a big brush, I also use the smaller ones to find out where the interesting details lies in the painting. The background holds the principle of the composition, and as I go on putting new layers on, I don't care too much about the composition, but all the time it is there, and I clean up the composition to hold the painting back and make it stay on the path I have decided on from the very start. Most of the colors are blue, black and white, but also yellow ochre. I try to get the power of the waves into my painting. And I do this by acting with my hands and to repeat these movements in the brush strokes. At a certain stage, as the work progresses, I will add shades of light gray and very light blue. Part of the work right now is to find the details. They are in the background, so I have to excavate them. Occasionally, I will clean up the composition. I don't do this a lot because it's a little stiff, but at this stage of the painting, it's nice to keep it clean. I like very much the exact expression, very precise. And then occasionally I adjust the mixes of my yellow. When you work with nuances this close to each other, paint gray and indigo are quite close, I have to be aware of using light and dark shades in order to keep them separated. To make it easier, I turn the painting around. I can only paint with my right hand, and it's easier when you experiment with the background. All the time I get closer to the finished painting. Right now, the process is to find places to add details and to find contrasts. Most of the painting is really to work with the contrasts. Sometimes I compare this phase of the work that it's similar to if you have a fish on the hook. The painting is there and you will just have to drag it in and fight it until you have it in your boat. The painting is not yet in the boat, but it's getting there. Now I add finer lines. I do that to bring in some depth in the painting. It's a classic way of experiencing a painting, that what's at the bottom is also the closest. The higher up in the painting you get, the further away the elements you paint will seem. You can work by toning down or mute the nuances the farther away you get in the painting. I don't use that in this painting, but it is absolutely an opportunity if you want to create depth. Still looking for spaces to put in some of the violet colors. This painting is quite close to be finished, and I put in the final details here by using a little light orange, only in small amounts. I clean up the composition and add the final details. The top of the painting is giving me a little trouble, so I decide to rule out all the nuances, only use one at the top. It is a green or muted green. I made it by mixing paint gray, white and yellow ochre. And that's it for today's video. I hope you liked it. If you did, please leave me a like, write me a comment or subscribe to my channel in order to get more content on the process of painting. Also, I wish you the best of luck when mixing your own colors for your compositions. I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.